Yeah. Hello.
Guten Tag.
Welcome back to another episode of A Story Worth Telling.
Thanks for your support on the last videos. Again, we are blessed by the gay gods with your attention. Keep doing it.
Thank you so much for all of your love and support. Yeah, let us know your thoughts on things you like and want us to do, and yeah. But no, yeah, today.
But we decided for you.
Today we're going for the wild, wild west for a particular reason.
And neither of us can do the accent.
No, we really can't. Can you guess what we're doing? We decided to go to a classic this episode.
It's a classic. Brokeback Mountain.
2005.
No.
Yeah.
They had a lubricant back then.
No, it's not set in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
1963, set in the 60s.
Okay. Slightly more forgiving then.
I think it's a really great film to kind of go back over. I think from my knowledge, it was like the first proper film to hit mainstream Hollywood that like showed a gay love story.
But I also don't think it was advertised as that. So
It
people went to
wasn't.
the movies, they were like, wait.
Yeah, it was quite sneaky. They used very...
Honey, what did you bring me to watch?
Totally. It was really sneaky. And I think I loved that because it kind of lured people into this sort of false sense of what the movie was going to be. And I think, you know, it kind of showed it, but you didn't really get what it was about. And then people left the cinema completely changed. And they were seeing things... Well, not
Scarred.
Scarred, if you like. But, like, they were seeing things that just, you know, you hadn't seen, in cinemas like that. And obviously... it is that film that we think about, like, you know, the controversies over Brokeback Mountain, but also, like, the significance of Brokeback Mountain, what it was, and films to follow that in terms of gay representation on cinema screens. So I think it's a great film. I haven't seen it in ages, actually, so this is actually the first time.
I can't really remember the plot.
So I can't even remember if necessarily it's, it presents good or bad gay representation, but I think just as a film it's significant and should be done. So yeah,
so we're doing it.
It's
happening.
And as you can see, we are
we're sticking with themes. We could just quickly run out of ideas.
Never.
Okay.
We are cowboys
and cowgirls and cow people.
cow humans. Let's go, partner.
Let's get unless you want to sit around town nuts all day.
Already, when you're watching this film, you can like sense the sensitive masculinity, if you like.
Right.
And I love that because I think that even in situations where people are not necessarily out, there's like a sense of self-defense. Do you remember when you were like, was ever a time
straight?
Yeah, I do think there's a sense of when you're not fully either comfortable with your identity, your sexual identity, or like...
or you want to conceal it. We do these acts, and I think that's what they're doing a lot of right now. Like, they're doing... He's like, there's not a horse that could throw me. Like,
yeah, like it's a competition of like who can perform more. Yeah.
Woo-wee! Yeah!
Getting tired of your dumbass mission.
very touching.
I think I'm going to end up finding this quite funny to like talk about, purely because I think it's a good film, but like I think for its time they were really just pushing how they could like make two men fall in love with each other.
Balls aren't size apples.
What now?
You're not seeing like all the obvious sexual references.
No?
Like the can spurting up after he's talking about big balls. I just think it's so funny.
Maybe this is just going completely over my head.
But I think that would have.
You think that's the obvious thing?
But I think...
I can't see it.
Oh, I don't know. I could be reading into this, but I think if you watched it the first time back then, you would have gone over your head. But watching it back now, I see so many.
I'm just not looking for them, but I see what you mean. Oh.
Is he gonna look? Is he gonna look?
Or like...
Do you see how obvious it is now? I love it though. I love
What point do you think Steve, the straight man, who'd come to see this with his wife,
realizes that they're flirting?
Realizes that this is not what he signed up for. Like, at what point is that moment?
I don't know. I don't think it's for a while.
No?
What are the signs of homosexual relationship? Like, can you tell? Like, is there a difference? I think it's really good that they're talking about, like, these two men could be gay men. You don't know. You don't realize. And I think that's a great kind of, like, thing to talk about, because anyone can be gay, anyone can be straight, and, you know, anything. You can't make assumptions on appearances. You can't make assumptions about how people are. Professions, or where you live, or how you dress. And I think Steve, the straight guy in the audience, may not realize for a while.
Quit your hammering. Get in here.
I think Steve would have an inkling at this point.
No, not yet. Ow! Well,
I think that scene would still get a lot of people in the moment, like, whoa.
Okay, yeah.
There's like two things. So, like, number one, spit does not do that. It's like extremely unrealistic. He would be in so much more pain, actually.
I mean, he was in pain.
Yeah.
That would be fucking raw.
Yeah, well, exactly.
No.
It just kind of literally goes,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. On the other hand, I kind of appreciate the scene for, like, being, for lack of a better word, so raw. Because it really is, like, very...
Two men just getting it on.
You know, like, a lot of, like, Hollywood sex scenes are, like, very staged.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of a nice sort of, like, naturalness about it. And it's so, like, it's really passionate in terms of, you know, these are two guys. There's a mixture of emotions. There's, like, fear, there's sexual tension, there's attraction, there's panic, because they're, like, you know, there's two men who, yeah, 1 minute you think he's going to literally punch him. You don't know. They don't know how to react. They've probably never done this before. There's so many kind of fears. Are they going to carry on doing it? Okay, how do they do it? Screw it. You know, let's just get, you know, in the moment. And there's a lot of, like, you don't know where it's going to go. And I quite like that. And I think also for audiences in 2005, going to a cinema and then suddenly seeing such an intense scene like that, it's a scene that has a purpose to impact you. So everyone's like, whoa. And I think it's good and it's bad. I mean,
Jake is very, very brave in that scene. Like, he initiates it basically with, like, the hand coming over. And,
absolutely.
Like, that could have been, you know, that guy could have killed him.
Yeah, there's so many ways it could have turned out.
Wasn't it? But did you notice how there was no, like, it wasn't, like, romantic. It wasn't intimate. There was no kissing. It was just, like...
I mean, that's the scene that gets everyone when they watch this film, and they get it. He gets them for a reason.
Interesting scene.
But that would have hurt.
And we're only half an hour into a, like, 2 and a bit hour film. So at this point, the audience are deciding whether to keep. That's such a good
point. Like, yeah, because at this point they're like, "Whoa, okay, like, wasn't expecting that." Or maybe you were.
I'm getting a refund.
Yeah. I think the question is, do I agree with what I'm watching? Do you know what I mean? And that determines who walks out and who stays.
I don't think this is queer representation yet.
I kind of agree. I don't
think it is. I think it's just.
Well, I think it is, but I think it's trying to either, in a way, it's trying to disguise it, and at the same time, it's also trying to break down barriers of it. You know, it's kind of saying, "Oh, this is theirs," or is it? You know, are we perpetuating this kind of stereotype of they're not gay, or, you know, they are, maybe they are, or is it kind of being like, oh, you know, we can show this on screen, it's totally okay. It's really interesting.
Was that a dream?
The morning
That's
after.
The PG version.
You know I ain't queer.
Me neither.
Cheeky bit of denial.
Yeah.
This is before queer was kind of reclaimed a bit by our community, so it's used there as a bit of like a derogatory thing there. It's like, I ain't queer.
So a year before this is based, the first state decriminalized. Stonewall hasn't happened yet, but one state has, you know, decriminalized it. So it was an interesting period of kind of uncertainty, if you like, in terms of what's going on that front.
Yeah.
And I think for two guys who, at, you know, in this moment in time, you're right, there's a load of denial going on, and there's a load of, how do I process this? However you process things is entirely down to you, and it can take as long or as short as needs be.
just try not to like hurt other people in the process.
Yeah.
And you're good.
Don't internalize any of that sort of hatred and shame that people often feel of, you know, kissing someone of the same sex, or, you know, doing anything in that matter, because it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think that's...
It's actually nice.
It's actually quite nice. Yeah. See, this is romantic.
Yeah, now Steve's like, fuck this.
Now Steve is like, I know what this film is about.
The more I think about it, the more I kind of resonate with that scene. It's probably the first time they're really feeling like this strong sense of connection and security and intimacy with someone that like really gets them.
All these gay men who've been watching that and been like, oh my god, like I can relate to that. Okay, skip through. This film doesn't want you to. There are a lot of us out here who feel comfortable labeling their identities and that, and saying, you know, this is what I am. But sometimes I think it's equally important to, you know, not always be fixated on having to necessarily label, you know, your identity. And sexuality is a spectrum, and it doesn't just mean you don't have to be one or the other. You can, you know, float wherever you want on that spectrum, and you can go back up and down it all the time, however you want. And for them, I don't think we necessarily have to say they're gay. I think they're men who can also love men as well as love their wives and, you know, their children and that life of them. Whether or not they're happy in either is a different story.
Well, I think in a similar vein to your sexuality being on a spectrum, I think happiness is probably also on a spectrum. Like, he is probably happy, but whether he could be happier in a different life when he's loving a man,
100
could be like 20% more happy, or I don't know, like
20%.
I don't know what's the added value.
Only 20%.
Well, I don't know, 50%,
At least
100%. He's double as happy.
Do you think it's selfish? It's so it's really difficult. I mentioned in the last video in Love, Simon, about how I thought his friends are being quite selfish when they weren't, you know,
they weren't
empathizing with him. But then I do think sometimes it's important in situations to remember other people's feelings, because as much as we can say, okay, well, you know what, we really need to think, you know, he's clearly not happy and he deserves to be happy, and that's such an important thing. Like, you do have to think about, you know, the potential of hurting someone else.
I had a really great relationship with a girl for a while. I remember very distinctly going through this kind of process of finally figuring out who I was while still with her. And I remember having this thought process of, I think it's better now that I know that I make that clear to her now. I was happy with her, like, it's about the scale of happiness again, you know? But I didn't want to be this guy in 10 years' time, if we were like, you know, in this traditional family setting, like married with a kid, and then also having these thoughts on the side, like that just wouldn't be fair. So,
and not being your authentic self.
Exactly.
Well.
So I feel like you're right. You have to consider other people's feelings, especially if you're involved with someone at the time that you're really like coming to terms with yourself, because I think it's better to be honest always. People will forgive honesty. What they won't forgive is betrayal and pain. Be true to yourself, but also be considerate.
Yeah.
Don't bring people along for the ride and then discard them, because we don't do that to people.
Yeah.
We're nice to people.
You got your wife and baby in Texas, and you know, I got my life in Riverton. And this thing grabs hold of us again in the wrong time, and we're dead.
First half an hour, we see these two men exploring everything about themselves, and you see the passion, you see, you know, the connection. And then it's after, which I think is kind of rare, because often we see different things where we see sort of the stigma, the homophobia first, the can't happen, and then in the end the sort of accepting, and actually what you're getting reverse of that. And I think it's a really interesting way to bring audiences in, because you get to see a really authentic, raw, natural kind of this is love. Oh, and this is why that it can't happen.
Yeah, they get the buy-in early. They're like, I'm invested now, and then and this is why they can't be together.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah, I'm so glad that in 2021 we're at a much better stage of bringing kids up and saying, no, you can do whatever you want. Don't kill people, but you can do whatever,
Yeah, there's a list of things you can't.
There's a list of things you shouldn't do, but you don't have...
Society's a bitch.
You don't have to get married. You can marry who you want to be with. You can love who you want to be with. You can do whatever job or profession you want to do. Be single. Be in a relationship.
You do you.
You do you. It's not scary.
We just
but it's...
abdicated all responsibility for the continuation of society.
No, absolutely not. We are living our authentic best lives. And
who cares about the future of humanity? He goes for a hookup. In Mexico.
Do you see what I mean? Liquid, just pouring over something. So many sexual references. I remember when I first watched that scene, I found it really hard to compute. It's such a very quick scene that happens. I couldn't quite wrap my understanding around the way in which an interaction of barely 2 words and a look, and then darkness and unknown. And it kind of just shocked me. It shocked my head, because I was like...
Is that real?
Is that real? And is that really kind of like the example that we want gay men to think that that's how you can connect with someone? Because we see them on the mountain and it's like, okay, they've had time to socialize and be around each other. But that's 2 men in a remote location that have been, in a way, they've been fortunate enough to get that opportunity to be alone. This is everyone else. This is how everyone else is kind of
dark alleyways,
and that's how you're kind of coping with it at the time. It really kind of bugged me seeing that.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Get yourselves on Grindr.
You always say that.
Because I hear what they're going to...
Oh, I actually got a bit emotional then. So years and years, they've just met up a couple times. You can imagine that.
Savage.
It's, imagine not being able to see someone. Imagine only being able to see the person you really love once in a blue moon.
When the tire blew up, the rim of the tire slammed into his face. He drowned in his own blood. He was only 39 years old.
That's such a disconnected scene. I'm almost not sure if the vision that you see of Jack being beaten up is something that Ennis thinks happened because of his fear.
Yeah.
Or whether it really did happen. And I'm never really sure if Anne Hathaway's character knew. It goes to that extreme of like, well, the gay story couldn't end happily and one of them had to die, which I'm not sure is necessarily a good, positive way to do it. But, sometimes you do have to have those tragic endings to kind of make an impact and get a point across. It's a tragic love story.
It's a tragic, it's a journey. It's a journey, but it's lovely. You
see these 2 people suffer pretty much throughout the whole film. They're constantly suffering. They're constantly dealing with their own identities and how to come to terms with it. And unfortunately, one of them, passes away. But the nice thing about it is arguably Ennis, who has been dealing with it far worse, at the very end is living his true self. For representation, for me, this film always has a gold place in my heart for just being like that film that kind of took the first step, was like, bam, here you go, here is reality for queer people, and you just have to face it. And It's a really good step.
It is a historical look. It doesn't represent now, but it might represent then.
Yeah.
There's a few bits to take away and resonate with.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
reflect on, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's Bareback Mountain, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Sticking with us through that journey.
That was a long, intense journey.
Yeah.
We're glad we did it. Yeah, I'm always much more of a Heath.
Oh no, Jake Gyllenhaal's totally...
Really?
Yeah.
But Heath is so hot.
Not as much.
Are you a Heath or are you a Jake?
Answers on a postcard.
Comment, let us know. Don't know what we're doing next, but we've got a lot more in store for you. Please comment, tell us what you want to see. Subscribe.
Yeah, like. Comment. See you next one.
See you in the next one. Bye.
Ciao. Yeehaw!